Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Today's guest is Rick Hoegler, President and CEO of Pan American Properties. They're a leader in property management and real estate investment. With over 30 years of experience, Rick has been instrumental in driving the company's growth and their reputation for excellence. Not to mention, Pan American Properties is a MAP Presidential Award winner in 2024, which is a huge achievement. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
Rick fosters, and I'd love to learn more about this, a people-first philosophy and a dedication to strong relationships that have really been crucial to the company's success in this very competitive industry. So today we're fortunate to have Rick join us. I know he's very, very busy to share his experience talking about their journey, scaling the successful business. Rick, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure,
I really,
absolutely.
Really look
Happy to do it.
To the conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
So that said, let's dive in. So the first question I have is, Pan American Properties, you guys have been a family business. Your father founded it back in 1983. Yes. I'd love to learn, are there any values or principles that your father instilled in the company that you've carried forward as a leader in your leadership position?
Yeah, quite a few, quite honestly. I unfortunately was able to work with him for better part of 25 years. So it was a real challenging at times, but a very fun thing for a father and son to be able to do. I would say, going back to in your intro, the people first philosophy, that really came from Dad. Dad was all about the people. If you don't have the right people, if you're not taking care of the people, then, they're not going to take care of you. So pretty simple. I think in business these days, we try to overcomplicate things with all these metrics and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, it's about the people, especially when it comes to a service-based business. To make sure that they're representing you well, because you can't be everywhere. And we've always just tried to, do whatever we can to help them, not only in their professional growth, but also in their personal lives. We're creatures of multiple different things happening. You know what I mean? You've got your business life, you got your family, and a lot of times now that's kind of meshing, with dual income households and, who's taking care of the kids and this, that, and the other. So we try to be very understanding. I've, got a family. All of our executive team, has got families as well, and really try to do what we can to accommodate that, knowing in turn that they're going to be there for us when we need them to, and be appreciative of it. So I would say that probably first and foremost was Dad's big legacy, piece that he left for me was, again, make sure that you're treating your people right.
I think that's awesome. And I think that, in working with clients at MAP, one of the things we hear a lot is people talk a lot about staffing, right? And so that sort of leads into, I think the following question to what you just said is, do you have any specific strategies or approach that you go to finding those great people, right? So building an amazing team and investing in them. How do you go about that?
So we do use a couple of different strategies. We do use a headhunter, but that it's a one person show. They know us intimately. We've used them for years. It took a long time to find this person, but they understand us. You know what I mean? They get us. So we're not just, having random people show up. I mean, this is like, hey, this is really a significant person that feels like they will blend well with your culture. So that's number one. Number two, we get a lot of referrals. I mean, quite honestly, it's a huge blessing, but we've got families that work for us. You know what I mean? The husband does the maintenance. The wife might do the management. The kids are now, growing up saying, hey, they want a shot, you know what I mean? And learning, either what dad does or mom does or whatever. So, which I take as a huge compliment and don't take lightly, that, hey, we've got, an organization here that people still want to be a part of and want their family members to be a part of as well. So a lot of it does come from referral, or, hey,
Okay.
somebody's really having a good experience here and someone else may not be somewhere else. And, we enter them into the process and see where it goes from there. So.
That's great. So you took over the business from your father in 2016, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? What was the transition like? I mean, on a personal level, professional level?
Yeah.
You're filling your dad's shoes. How'd that go?
Sure. So it's interesting, right? Because when you work for family, it can be, it's kind of a catch-22, right? Like it can be really, really great. And you've got somebody there that really wants to, make sure that you're successful. One of the things that I've always thought is interesting is, like when you look at a father-son relationship, that's probably one of the few guys in life that actually wants you to do better than him, right? So that was my dad's deal was, he wanted me to be successful and do better than he did. But that didn't come with some, growing pains either about handling things, in maybe a more techno forward, scenario situation or, handling versus, maybe an older school way of doing things. Right. So there was a little bit of that. But fortunately, we were able to, because of our working relationship and him seeing the growth and how we were able to get to where we were. I mean, I can remember at one time, I think we had, I don't know, a couple hundred units under management, and now we're, over 3,000. So wow. He saw the growth. He saw, the maintenance division, started from nothing, all under, my tutelage. And he's like, hey, it's time. He knew that he wasn't, able to really contribute, which I thought was really a neat way. I mean, obviously, I always valued his, conversations and us being able to just hang out after work or, when things died down and just, shoot the stuff, if you know what I mean. But, he wanted it to be successful, but he also knew when it was time to say, okay, you've got it and I want you to take it and run with it without me having to stand in the way. So I thought that was beautiful. You know what I mean? It was really cool that, I see that a lot because we deal with a lot of family, estates and whatnot where somebody maybe wants to hold on a little too long.
Yeah.
And I think Dad, timed it well. Quite honestly, looking back, I wouldn't have changed anything. I mean, he really, really did it well. And it was still that ear, you know what I mean? When I needed somebody to listen. Still was Dad, and would give me kind of the, this is where you're right, or this is where you're wrong. But yeah, it was just a natural, it was just very natural the way that it happened.
Okay. When you stepped into that leadership role, do you remember what was the first big challenge you faced and how did you go about tackling it? Or was it natural because you'd already been building and there?
Yeah, there really, really wasn't, Andrew. I mean, we really didn't have a whole lot of oh, geez, now what? Because he had really been letting me do what I needed to for many, many years, even though it was still underneath him. Almost serving as kind of like a backstop, hey, we're going to let him go. And if we see this going down a wrong path, then I'm here to kind of, course correct. But it was really just a very smooth transition. He had allowed me to, really interact with a lot of the clients one-on-one and kind of took a step back. And that was the beauty of it, is that there wasn't really any ego involved, right? It wasn't a struggle of, I still want to be relevant or this, that, or the other. It was just a very nice, smooth, even okay, you got this, now go, and don't give me any excuses, you know what I mean? Because you've got it, now get after it. So.
Okay. Pan American has been growing significantly under your leadership. Did you change strategies, or were there specific decisions that led to significant increases in growth or scale? You mentioned technology, being technology forward, or, were there
Sure.
changes in how you went approaching the growth of the business?
Yeah. So one of them actually is just, utilizing MAP,
Yeah.
and really keeping our focus where it needs to be. I mean, especially in a service-based business and in real estate here in Southern California. I mean, there's all kinds of new rules and regs and different things hitting you up left and right. So that's always been very, helpful, is just to keep our heads screwed on straight and like, hey, remember what the goal is and keep your focus there. Me personally, just from a personal standpoint, I'm kind of a disruptor. I've always been like, well, just because it's been done that way doesn't mean that it needs to continue to be done that way. So we try new stuff all the time. You know what I mean? It's the team kind of has to help me a little bit and put the reins on me, like, hey, wait a minute, let's do this initiative first before we go here. But I'm always trying new things and new ways, and some of them hit and some of them don't. But I think that that's really been part of the growth too, is that, the real estate management can either be looked upon as being very boring and mundane, or it can be looked at as, something that's dynamic and ever changing. So we like to take that approach, that it's dynamic, it's ever changing. Let's see how we can do it better. Let's see how we can utilize new technologies, and bring that to everybody, not just, the guy that has, he's 5, 6, 700 units, but even to the small family office that's like, hey, I really like what you're talking about, especially with the younger generation coming up now and helping mom and dad. They are tech forward and they want to hear about a lot of those things that are being deployed versus, well, we're just doing it the way that it's always been done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about dynamic and ever changing. It sort of segues into the next question. And I mean, the real estate market has had significant shifts and changes in recent years, right? Rising interest rates, changes in commercial real estate demand, shortages. Like, how have those impacted your business? And what have you done? I mean, that's got to be troubling, right? Uncertainty. It's a big theme that we've been talking about with a lot of our clients. Like, how have you gone about that? How do you approach that and navigate those
Sure.
waters?
So we look at it as a huge opportunity, because the more uncertainty there is, the more stability you need, right? And we feel that we really bring stability to that real estate environment, right? Like, hey, let's look at what you're doing. Let's see where we can, improve. Let's see where we can, deploy some efficiencies. I still am involved in, our weekly calls to look at every property, that we have under management, and just look at the summary and go, okay, are we doing what we said we were going to do for that client and then some? So I think that, having a partner, in this world, and that's what we try to, look at ourselves as, is we're not just an agent, we're a partner. We're in this together with you, and let's figure out how we navigate this best. We've certainly seen a slowdown in transaction volume because the interest rates have, shot up the way that they have and don't seem to be coming down at all. So it's a new normal. It seems like this is not just an aberration, but this is a new normal. And now we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that, right? And, our owners' expectations when they're selling realistic? Is our buyers, realistic, that we're helping out, just, hey, do they get it? You know what I mean? That this is where we are. And I think that we're kind of that stability that comes in going, that's pie in the sky, man. That's not going to be where it's going to be. You're going to be more here. Yeah. And we want to make sure, even if that means we don't get a deal or we don't, get an opportunity, we would rather be integral and say, hey, this is reality based on our data points that we're able to pull, from either our technology or, boots on the ground out there to give them real world experience immediately as to, hey, this is where you're really at. So we've seen it as an opportunity. Transaction volume, like I said, is down. Insurance is obviously a major issue right now. Speaking to you now, I mean, we've got these Southern California fires that are going on. Yeah. There's moratoriums in place, to where, new insurance isn't even being bound right now. So we've, utilized our relationships and whatnot to navigate that and help our clients, kind of get through all of that. So yeah, so I think that that's what people are also finding, is that we're a welcome resource that, because of the breadth of knowledge and experience that we can bring to the table to help them better navigate these, uncertain times.
Do you find that, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, do you find that when there's times like this, whether it's, you know, rocky waters in an industry or these fires, does it put more stress or pressure on you as the leader to show your people it's okay and be that face of calm? And like you mentioned, it's an opportunity. That's a mindset, which is a really strong, positive mindset. But do you
Sure.
then have to share that with your team, or I don't know, all hands? Like, how do you approach that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, kind of going along with the MAP principles, we actually have vital factor teams for every department that we have here. So that leadership, is not only poured into by us as the executive team, but then, our consultant as well helps with that to, again, keep the focus, stays the course. We are, a relatively conservative bunch around here, so we're not taking massive amounts of risk. And I think people appreciate that. And, another piece to that, I think, that keeps people engaged is that, we know their spouses' names. We know their kids' names. We're asking about how the soccer game was this last week, which brings a little bit more of a personal piece to it. So that way it's not just a job, and it's not just hey, everybody has a season in their life to where they're not executing at 110%. So what can we do to come alongside them to go, hey, what's really going on, and how can we help? How can we move, this forward, and help you out, whether it's a personal thing or a business thing, or maybe it's a coaching thing. But, fortunately, our executive team's been here. Our VP's been with me for 16 years now, and our director of operations, she's been here for 11 years now. So they know the culture, they get it. We've been through some rough roads together, and they've seen we've been able to come out the other end. So I think they can speak from experience too, to where it's not just me, trying to give the CEO, hey, come on, let's get out there and get it done. But there's other people that are speaking the language too, and they've seen it happen, and that we're about the people, and we want to see them succeed.
Yeah. I think that's great. You mentioned MAP a couple of times. Obviously, MAP is all about accountability and growth. How do you, when you're building your team, when you're looking at people that refer to you or that the headhunter sends, what are the qualities that you're looking for in a person to build that team that doesn't view accountability as a 4-letter word, doesn't view it as something negative, but leans into it, right? Which is a mindset thing. Are there specific qualities you're looking for in somebody?
Yeah. So what we try to do is, especially, if it's, the higher up the food chain it goes, is we really spend time creating an avatar of what is it that we really want to see in that hire, in that person. And we get pretty detailed with it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, do we want somebody that's going to be more of a D, more of a dominant in that role? Yeah. Do we want somebody that's more of a compliant? Depending on, hey, is it accounting? Is it property management? Is it development? Is it, maintenance and renovations? So all of these different pieces kind of require almost a little bit of a different personality. So we spend time creating the avatar. We disc pretty close to the front end of, any kind of conversation to make sure that we're seeing, what their personality type really is, because anybody can show up for 30 minutes and, say what you want to hear them say, but really, what is their personality? So that, disc, profiling that MAP helps us with is really helped us. We also have, our consultant's been great. I mean, he'll come in and say, hey, if you want me to interview this person for that role, and just give you kind of my sense of things from a, outsider's perspective, he's helped us with that. And we spend a lot of time with people. I mean, we don't jump immediately. It's, several interviews. The executive team signs off on just about everybody, unless it's, very, very low in the org chart about, who's coming in, because, culture above all else. We need to make sure that the people that are coming in are a right cultural fit, and they're not, again, to use another MAPism, they're not an onboard terrorist, right? That we're bringing in. They may sound great, but now they're going to undo a lot of, what we've tried to create. So that's how we try to navigate that, and really just the more dwell time you can spend with somebody, the more you're going to really find out who that person is. And, if they're, too hot to trot and want to go somewhere else, I get that, it's, that's their prerogative. But if they really want to be a part of this organization, we need to spend some time together to make sure that it's a good fit for both of us.
I like that. I like that a lot from top. I mean, taking your time. They always say to hire slow. And then I love that you infuse DISC into the process. I found that to be incredibly helpful. It tells you a lot about a person and their behaviors. With MAP, pushing it down to the teams, it's one thing to have it at the executive level. It's another thing to have MAP used throughout the organization with your mid-level teams, with lower-level teams, frontline. How have you gone about that process of implementing MAP throughout the organization? Has it taken a long time? Has it been challenging? Love to learn more about that. I think a lot of our clients would love to learn more about that.
Sure. So yes, it's taken time, number one. And has it been challenging? I don't think so, because we took some time to really make sure that everybody heard the lingo. You know what I mean? From the executive team, right? Like, when we're referring to vital factors, we're referring to, again, onboard terrorists or DISC or this, that, or the other. And they've used those in their hiring processes. I think that, again, it was more of instead of pulling the ripcord and implementing this right away, and this is the way it's going to be, it was more of okay, yeah, I get that. And now it's more of a privilege to be a part of it than it is to another thing that they have to do, right? Like they wanted to, well, what are you guys talking about? Or, what do you guys do in your vital factor teams and this, that, and the other? Well, now they get to be firsthand as part of their own vital factor team to do that. So, and I really do believe that, you can do everything you want at the executive level, but if your whole org doesn't understand, what you're doing, the why behind it, and what these terms mean, and it leads to disconnect, right? So, again, our consultant's been great at, doing these kind of initial vital factor team meetings to really get people dialed in. He's available, if we have questions or whatnot, or if we're starting to kind of run into some issues to where, the team isn't moving forward, he'll come in and help us kind of navigate that. But I'm just a firm believer in that accountability, right? Like we all need it. And quite honestly, we all desire it. I mean, as much as people say they don't, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, we all want to know, right? Test of three, again, another mapism, right? Like, how am I doing? Where do I go for help? And what's expected of me, right? So everybody wants that. And I think when you formalize it and just make it part of your culture, it's not nearly as a heavy lift as it, might be from, just all of a sudden getting this whim of, hey, we need to, have better accountability or this, that, or the other. So, and I'm part of it too. I mean, my team holds me accountable as well to, to my, goals and whatnot, which again, I think that's, if you're going to do this and if you're going to infuse it throughout your entire system, you've got to be part of it too, but then also allow your team to do and be a part of it as well, and not, be, dictatorial about it.
That's right. Yeah. You have to lead from the front. Absolutely. You mentioned something a few minutes ago, which I wanted to circle back to. You talked about being on a call with a lot of your clients and checking to make sure that things are going as you expect. They say inspect what you expect. They say trust but verify. There's all sorts of those, right? How do you balance between getting involved and then trusting the team? How do you approach that? Where do you draw the line? I think a lot of people struggle with that delegation, but also that, hey, inspect what you expect, make sure things are going properly. What's your approach?
That's, it's a good question. And I'm, as, scientific as this is I trust my gut. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I've worked for all kinds of shapes and sizes of clientele. And when I don't feel like something's right, then it doesn't pass the smell test, we're getting out there and we're checking it out. You know what I mean? And I think that's the difference, is that, this isn't an ivory tower environment where, nobody is better than anybody. Like, hey, if that means that I'm going out there and, kind of shaking the bushes to see what's going on, then that's great. or if it's somebody else that like, oh no, Rick, I'll take that on. I know exactly what you're referring to. But it's that open communication, right? And it's not that, being defensive. And, again, I think that MAP helps with that. And when we're all involved in it, this isn't an attack. It's just, hey, something isn't right there. And this is not what we talked to the client about, or this is, we know that what their expectations are, and are we in alignment with that? And if we're starting to veer off, let's course correct right away. You know what I mean? Instead of letting it get too far down the road and now it's really having a problem. So in many cases, our clients don't even know, that we've kind of, hey, sounded the alarm and like, hey, let's go out there and let's really check this out and figure this thing out. Because we're proactive about it, and that's what they're paying us to do, right? Like we're not, we're not paying bills and collecting rent, organization. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we're a partner, and we really want, to make sure that we're ahead of any potential issues or if we start seeing something pop up, that we get a wet blanket on it right away. And again, I don't think anybody around here, them knowing me, and how I operate, like, they don't take any offense to that. No different than I take any offense to, hey, I'm out in this area. Do you want me to go check on something for you? It's just that team concept, right? Of just, we're all in this together, and, we all need to help each other rise. So.
Excellent. So looking forward, what is the vision for the next stages of growth for Pan American Properties?
Yeah. So we just, about a month ago, just finalized our one-page plan, for next year. Another mapism, right? So we're looking to grow by a good 10% clip this year. Our stretch is 15, but we like to grow at a very consistent pace so that way we can manage it well, and we're not kind of drinking from a fire hose, and that we can plan for things. And so we're having conversations with a lot of our clientele way up front, saying, hey, what are you looking to do this year? What do you think is going to happen in your portfolio, so that we can plan for it? You know what I mean? And we're ready for it. And I think they appreciate that. But that's what we're looking to do, and both in our management opportunities, but then also in our maintenance and renovation as well. We have some, this SB 721 deck inspection thing that needs to get finalized this year. So some definite work there. And then I think, we're getting back to more of, hey, we gotta keep, the buildings up, gotta keep them, looking good. Colors are changing, interiors are changing, staying ahead of that, and making sure that we're, really providing an outstanding, opportunity for somebody to rent and, and call home. So.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm sure you guys will crush your goals this year, just like you have. And that's why you got the presidential award at MAP.
Yeah.
So, Rick, this has been great, man. Thank you so much. I know you're
absolutely.
very busy with everything you've got going on there, and appreciate your time sharing it with us.
Sure.
Before we wrap, where can listeners go to learn more about Pan American Properties or you?
Sure. So our website is papinc.com. That's pretty much got everything, that we're doing on it. We've got our LinkedIn, profile there as well. So they can follow me also on LinkedIn. I try to, do kind of a little weekly post of, we call it a minute with Rick. So just a real quick, 1 minute or less about, hey, what we see happening in the marketplace. And again, we're happy to be a resource to anybody. So if anyone, wants to talk, whether they're in our industry or not, that was my dad's philosophy too, is, help those that you can. So, if anybody listening, wants to talk more about the MAP process or what we're doing as an organization, I'm happy to help.
You're probably going to get some people reaching out looking for a job after hearing about the company. That's what I would think.
That's great too. So,
well, cool. This is perfect. Thanks, Rick. Thank you so much. And for everybody listening, thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.